Oh, thanks. Yeah, we I don't know if I can change my camera. We did the whole like dining room. I don't know if you can see it. So like this whole area, and then wraps around into the kitchen. I've had this color picked for a year, but we've been too busy. So,
well, good for you.
Sorry, we're a little chaotic here. We're all having dinner, and I'm gonna mute myself.
It can be chaotic as long as we're all just here. I think I ate dinner the fastest I have made it. I did that HelloFresh free trial for a week or so. I'm on like week number 2.
Do you like it, Ms. Hampton?
I like the trial. It was like $11 for the first time, and really good. Then of course the next time it's a little bit more expensive, and then they have you, because before you can cancel it, you get number 3, and pretty soon you know there's $41.95 coming out of your PayPal account.
No way.
And so now I've canceled it, but I love it. It is so good. It was so easy. But I can't spend my money like that. So
that's the one that comes at your house like 4 chicken breasts if you use all 4. Yeah.
Yep. And I had to change my venue. I'm tired of sitting on the floor or sitting in my chair, so I'm on the floor. But this is optional, so we have to be professional, but we can be a little optional. So we can go like this.
Oh my God.
And you can show toothless smiles.
Oh.
She's so furry, you guys. I wish you could pass her around, and she goes to nursing homes with me and kids and just wants love.
What's her name?
She came with the name Zuri.
Zuri.
So I kept Zuri, and the girl just wants love. So she's really good with kids and nursing home as far as people just wanting to lay with her and pet her. So she works. She's a good worker. So we'll wait a couple more minutes. I posted our morning session, and I'll post this one too, just for review. But if you've attended this, and even for people who haven't attended it, if you tell your cohorts, if they really watch through this, even though they can't make it, hopefully that they're watching it, because this information, it's priceless. It's good stuff we bring up and talk about. So, hi, Olivia.
Hi, Miss Hampson. What's your puppy's name?
Oh, that's Zuri.
Cute.
She's a mutt, a fluff ball mutt. Got her on a Keyshind rescue site, and she's not Keyshind. When I did the DNA salivary test, she's Papian and Husky.
Oh.
A lot of other mixtures, and she's got the fur for it. So
Cute.
Yeah, she's precious.
gosh. Go relocate. It's not going to be right in front here. Here, treat.
That's fine. Yep.
Okay, let's see. Get myself situated, and then I'm going to have to call somebody to get me up off the floor. Okay. Oh, no, look at Jenna go.
It's
with her grape juice. Yep. Everybody, I like grape juice is good for you, and Amanda has some white grape juice to make things be all okay. And I'm actually have milk.
Antioxidants, you know.
Yep. So get you nice and ready for tomorrow. Still stuffing myself with pillows. Well, some of you were here this morning after you've had things settle. think of what, any new questions? We'll kind of review the same going on. Hi, T. Get my stuff here. Okay. What do you want to talk about first?
Do we have to know, I mean, you don't have to say like if it's on the test or anything, but like focusing on like the lab procedures for custom tray, we didn't really talk about any of that this morning.
If we
Like,
didn't, if we didn't really talk about that and address it in PowerPoint, it's just kind of one of those things to know
Okay,
that custom trays are available.
got you.
I had questions and now I'm trying to figure. I wrote them down somewhere. Or I had like some spots that I wanted to talk about. Let me just find it.
I had a question about like the percentages. Can we clarify, is it specific to the, how do you say it, carbamide or carb, I can't say it right,
Yep, carbamide peroxide.
versus the hydrogen peroxide?
Yep, I was pushing buttons and I lost you guys here. So most, whether it's hydrogen or carbamide peroxide, have different percents and different times with it. So I actually took some notes from the speaker on that. And we can go over notes. I know it was a stressful day for you guys yesterday, and some of you did not take notes, so I'll go over some of the notes that I took here.
I've eaten frog legs.
I can't find my notes. That's the problem.
I've got quite the pile all over too here. So, okay. So peroxide and carbamide peroxide can both be used professionally. It's just hydrogen peroxide is mostly going to be used professionally at high strength. You guys remember what the byproducts are of carbamide peroxide?
Urea and
Water.
Hydrogen peroxide.
Right, so urea and the hydrogen peroxide, and then we know hydrogen peroxide breaks down again into what?
Water and oxygen.
Oxygen?
So it keeps the process going longer. So when people have carbamide peroxide, it's typically in your whitening trays at there's 6%, there's 10%, there's 22%, there's different percents of it.
Okay.
So the concentration can be lower and go longer, or the concentration can be a little bit higher and you get it done quicker, but you may have some sensitivity. So
Okay.
different times, different strength with that, but professionally it can both be used, but typically a carbamide is going to be used in your whitening trays. Okay, so as long as we're on the whitening topic, we'll go over notes that I took. Anything stand out to you? Any questions a speaker had? Anything unique or different she said that you want to talk about? I think the only thing that you guys have brought up so far is if you whiten with braces on.
Right. Oh yeah, you can whiten with the braces on.
Oh, you can, but part of it, what I want you guys to know too, is that this was a PowerPoint from sales, not a
Right.
PowerPoint from education too. So some of the things more towards the end that she talked about may not be what we would do in practice, nor is it anything that you'd be ended up being tested on. But some of the things that she did say that correlated with the knowledge that we had in our PowerPoint was she talked about the different stains. So extrinsic and intrinsic stain. Tell me about extrinsic stain.
So that's like on the surface, right?
Like your coffee
Yep.
and tea and
That's
things
the
like
coffee, the wine, the tea, the smoking. Something that's extrinsic is external. It had an outside source. So if it's intrinsic and it had an internal source, what are some intrinsic stains?
like tetracycline.
Recycling.
And we don't see that as much.
You said something like amalgam.
Yeah, the amalgam polish, or the amalgam filling stain. Why is that one harder to whiten?
I forgot.
The amalgam pop.
The amalgam is in the dentinal tubule, so is that something that's going to come out, or is that
That's in there.
it's tattooed into your enamel?
Right. Well, so it was confusing because she made it sound like if we can do a whitening for tetracycline, why wouldn't it be effective on other things?
So again, coming from a salesperson, they're
Okay.
going to say that you could whiten coal, because you can whiten it a little bit, but remember, it's keeping it into perspective of what actually are we going to do. So we got to take her information, but then tie it into the information that we're learning about here too. So yes, somebody in practice who's got tetracycline stain, are they an ideal candidate, or is it that they can't do it? Well, they probably can do it, but they're not an ideal candidate for it. So what she's going for is there are people who know that they aren't going to have crowns and veneers done. What's an option to make me look a little bit better? And so then they can have still get lighter teeth, but they're not going to get that refrigerator white teeth because of the colors. And what are the colors of the teeth that whiten the best?
Like the yellow.
Like the shades?
Yeah, like not like A1, B1 and not on a shade guide, but yeah, somebody said yellow. So if they're the yellow and they're white, they're going to pick up a little bit easier than someone who's brown and orange and gray. That's a deeper, different stain that's going to be harder. So someone with tetracycline stain isn't an ideal candidate. It could happen if that's what they want to do and they know that the results are, we'll see what it is. For our purposes here, we're going to focus on it that it's an intrinsic stain and that is not likely a candidate. But there's a lot of things that are possible out in practice for people.
Okay, so if we're questioned about it and along our way, then we want to mainly focus it's going to be most effective on extrinsic staining and intrinsic, not so much.
I love
we'll
it.
Just say no.
You're going to
For
say
now.
no for now. So yeah. And then, so when somebody has their first appointment, whitening, what's happening?
Get like a full med history.
Yeah.
We're always going to have that medical history because we're going to talk about our contraindications, which contraindications to whitening could be what?
Chemo and radiation.
Yeah, they're melanoma.
For the power whitening with using a light, anything of that light sensitivity is
So,
going to could cause problems.
So those are the light activated ones, but should we focus anything, so like all the list of the contraindications was like if there's cavities present, if there's like the patient's unwilling to replace anterior restorations, like do we have to focus more on that, or are you wanting us to focus more on the light activated contraindications?
Oh, I'm going to say that you're going to focus on both.
Okay.
because some of them go hand in hand. Some of them are pretty straightforward, that if there's caries, we're not going to go through whitening. If their perio's unstable, we're not going to go through whitening. That little video that she played, we've played that at team meetings, and we've seen that video a lot. And that's out there a lot in practice. And some of you might see that in clinic when you've had, well, I wanted to get my front tooth fixed, or I wanted to have this done, but they said I need this deep cleaning first. That's good. Somebody's looking out for their back, even though they just really want their teeth fixed or what have you. So first appointment, then yes, the contraindications. So if you had a first appointment, you would go through their medical history, but it could be a first appointment for whitening take-home trays, or it could be a first appointment for the Zoom with the light. So you want to know both contraindications. So if you're using that light and LED and UV and all of this, that's when you're going to get into photosensitivity, the chemo, melanoma, those types of things too.
Okay.
Somebody could whiten their teeth with the tray method if they were sensitive to the sun. So there's certain factors that go with certain things, but basic. And then the in-office Zoom will go from there. So no caries, making sure they're a healthy individual, because there's going to be people who can't have whitening that have major issues, and then there's people who've got some issues. Like if somebody has high blood pressure, should they whiten their teeth?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I asked that kind of a tricky way. I should say could. Should they? No, they should not. Could they? Yes, they could.
Yes, that's something we wouldn't like turn them away for, right? We wouldn't.
No, we just make sure that they're healthy. It could be a controlled blood pressure. They can have it. So if they're having a controlled systemic something going on, just because someone needs to take a pre-med and because they've had a joint replacement, they can still whiten. So people can still whiten their teeth, just to know the UV sensitivities that we talked about in office. And then mostly it's physical with the trays, knowing your boundaries between external whitening and intrinsic whitening. Let's see. We talked about what the materials break down to. And her recommendation matches what the book recommends. How much are you going to put into the tray in each little reservoir spot?
Dot.
Just a dot. And do we have to have the reservoir?
No.
No. It's time consuming. Some do, some don't. And just to go through again with, I had written down when we talked about that there's the hydrogen peroxide that is quicker acting. And then the carbamide, which is good for the long haul, can be up to 8 hours overnight. What she was talking about with the tetracycline stain, that if you've got a low amount in a longer length of time, it's going to soak into those pores of the teeth over time versus a big, it's in and done. And that's where you'll get a little bit more, I want to say lightening, not whitening, but lighten shades of gray. So knowing that that's how the whitening goes through into your, through your enamel, then what can help restore it if it is sensitivity? She brought up some products too, but what are some things that we've talked about?
So the stannous fluoride and the potassium nitrate?
Yep, so what products are the potassium nitrates in?
Like Sensodyne?
That's your Sensodyne over-the-counter products. And instead of stannous fluoride, what about sodium neutral?
Fluoride. Yeah.
So stannous fluoride is makes stain. So if somebody would have to have some specific reason to want to use stannous fluoride, that was an bacterial, and it causes stain. It was used in perio a long time ago. It's still available today for its antibacterial capabilities, but the side effect is staining teeth. So you're going to have not acidulate phosphate, the sodium, but also what can they do at home that they're going to use 2 times a day?
Oh,
Product for sensitivity, prescription.
Oh, prescription.
oh
chloride.
the 5,000 parts per million, right?
Yep, so it's 5,000 parts per million, and no matter what the brand, it's 5,000 parts per million. It can be Zoom, it can be Floridex, it can be Prevident. There's a lot of brands out there. It's prescription only, and you got to keep that up away from the kids because they have a tube of that, then they'll be sick, but then they've also ingested the fluoride that could alter their forming teeth as well. So that's what it is. Once it gets to that mark, it has to be prescription strength because water has 1 part per million or less. Toothpaste is around 229 parts per million, and then we make a pretty big jump to 5,000 for people. And then our gel, like our sodium neutral, is 12,600 parts per million. And then we go to 23,000 for the varnish. You don't need to know all that. It's just where does that 5,000 fit in the realm of our fluoride spectrum.
Okay.
Kind of right in the middle, but it's the top end for the patient.
And it's only available through prescription.
Yep. And the dental office can sell it as a prescription, or they can write it as a prescription. So, and then that's going to go through to soak into the dentin. And that's also good for after you have your debonding done, the ortho debonding. See, I'm segueing into another section there. So, whitenings, there's different times for the whitenings too. You can have whitening that can be done. There's daytime, and then there's the nighttime. She was talking about day white and night white for their brand. It literally breaks it up that you can do it. There's 30 to 60 minutes. There's 60 to 90 minutes. A variety of time for the whitening. A lot of times it is you can go 2 30-minute sessions. Some products use 2 1-hour sessions. It's just if it is in the daytime, it might be a hydrogen peroxide, and a nighttime could be carbamide. But there's many types of varieties and formulas. You're just gonna have to know which is what your office will have.
Okay.
So with whitening, then we talked about the difference between the stains, knowing the contraindications, as well as who are good candidates for whitening. And we talked about the first appointment, health history, going over if they should do it or not, answering your questions. What happens at the second appointment?
Isn't that like the written portion?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is where I got confused because so on the first appointment,
too.
you would then take impressions so that you could make the tray, correct?
Yep. So
As long as there's no contraindications.
Yep.
And
so the second appointment is you're delivering the trays, you're making sure that they fit. And yes, for written instructions, because a lot of times you can say things, you can, just like you described your root planing, we want that written instruction pamphlet to be gone through, but then given to them so they can refer it to later, because a lot of information goes right over their head if people are nervous, scared, excited, whatever. So if they have that written instructions, then they can refer back to it and chart with that. But remember, you're also taking your intraoral photographs and getting them all ready to go. So it's actually, okay, it's actually 2 appointments. And then the third one they're referencing to is their follow-up when they're all done. I'm all done. I finished my whitening. It's been 7, 10, 2 weeks, and they're going to come back in for a recheck. And some people come, some people don't. But for the book, the third appointment would be your follow-up, your re-eval appointment. So they can have their pictures taken with their new shade, a comparison, get the shade guide out. But also, if they need some more, maybe they need to do 2 or 3 extra days on it, then they can get that product to hopefully get them a little bit lighter.
Okay.
So those were our series for the appointments. Any other questions for the whitening? Okay, so I took some notes on page 239 of the book just to review. This is somebody asked this question and I reviewed it, but I'll take it word for word that the hydrogen peroxide at 6% is 60 to 90 minutes. 10% is about 30 to 60 minutes. So 15%, which is obviously higher than the others, is 20 minutes. So the higher it goes, the stronger it is, the more sensitive it could be. So if somebody's going to have a daytime whitening, depending on the percent, then it could be 2 half-hour sessions or an hour session 2 times.
Okay.
But
My
it's
bad.
going to be dependent on their percent. And the carbamide peroxide is the ones that most of the trays are made from for going home. Well, except for like the Go trays that I showed you that I actually put in my mouth was hydrogen peroxide, but that's a quick one. That's a boost. It's to go. So you got your 10 trays on the top, your 10 on the bottom, boom, done. It's not going to be as effective or long-term as, and it wouldn't be needed. It wouldn't be recommended for those deep gray stains either. That's a
Did
quick
you
touch
guys-
up.
Any contraindication in like pregnant women or anything with that?
That is a contraindication. We wouldn't, there's not research done. Pretty much if you see something with pregnant, it's usually going to be a contraindication because nobody does the research on that to cause any health defects or problems with mom and baby. So that's
Mhm.
actually a contraindication for
Okay.
whitening
Okay.
listed in your book. Yep. And then the carbamide peroxide. So that one is the one that you can do multiple sessions, couple hours or so, but also what's special about that one in a low dose?
Can't they like sleep in them?
Yeah, that's 8 hours or overnight. So
That's cool.
that's the one, because if you leave hydrogen peroxide in for that long, you'd be pretty sore, but then eventually it's done working too. But it's not just your teeth sensitivity, it's your gum sensitivity. So I actually, I don't hope for this, but I kind of want somebody to get a little overzealous on their trays so they can show everybody what happens to their tissue. Because it turns white and then it'll turn red and slough off. So I did it and I know what I'm doing. And so I did it the first time. We had multiple trays and multiple reps come in. And yeah, I've done it with a Crest. I did it worse with a Crest white strip. That's why over-the-counter products and unsupervised products aren't necessarily better. Because white strips have hydrogen peroxide in it. It's a one-size-fits-all. And I did it during the staff meeting when the Crest person came in. We all got our strip out, we slapped it on, and we're all like, woohoo, all this stuff. And I'm like, I think I'm on fire here. Something's wrong. And I'm trying to have my coworkers look without being, you see something going on here? You see what's going on here? And they're like, no. I'm like, nope. You got to go with my gut. I'm whipping this off. I whipped it off. And then I'm like, what do you see now? And they're like, oh, ooh. And I'm like, what? Yeah. Stark white, fried. Took like 5 days for that to feel better. And so it's not meant for everybody. I was really sensitive with that, but I'm not with the carbamide peroxide. So
Miss Hampson, I have a random question. What do you say to your patients? Because I have a couple people that I know that their mouthwash is straight up hydrogen peroxide.
My SRP patient, he wants white teeth, of course, and he asked that. He's like, "Can I just brush with hydrogen peroxide?" And I'm
Yeah.
like, no.
Yep. You know what?
What do you say to that?
Well,
I
people
don't know. I'm
people
like, that's
do,
so-
and they got white teeth, but of
Yeah.
course we're not going to say do that. What I say is, I ask them, well, what makes you like it? Well, okay, if they just want white teeth, then make sure I'm going over their OHI and doing everything for them. But sometimes you have to flat out say, well, I'll be honest with you, is that, hydrogen peroxide, it can whiten. It's not recommended for that, but just like a countertop, you're going to clean it, clean it, clean it. Eventually it's going to wear out and come to a point that it's going to be brittle. It's not going to be healthy in there. But too much hydrogen peroxide is good to rinse with once or twice if you've got a cut or a sore or something like that, because it takes down the bad bacteria, but also takes down the good bacteria. So a lot of times people who swish with it too much get yeast infections in their mouth. So they'll get thrush. And
No.
so I'm going to say maybe over half the people that have told me that, I'll have them stick out the tongue. I'm looking at the palate, and maybe they have white teeth or not, but I'm like, what are you doing here? And it's the natural remedies that people think are fine and good. Like,
My husband has a Listerine that's like a gum health Listerine, and it has hydrogen peroxide in it. I absolutely hate it because I don't like the taste. But
Yep.
I mean, he doesn't use it every day, but
it's
I
very
can't
mild.
imagine.
Yeah, it's very mild form on it, and most of them say discontinue use at certain amount of time.
Right.
They have one made by Colgate that's Paroxyl, that's meant for if you have an inflammation or something like that, but it's not meant to be used longer than whatever weeks, 2 weeks or so it's on it. But
Mm.
I'd steer them towards, there's other mouthwashes that have, like what Amanda said, some other whitening products in there, or just to ask them what's stopping you from having some tray whitening, or what's stopping you from using a more traditional product. And maybe they don't know, maybe they assume it's thousands of dollars, and just ask them why they are choosing that, and just provide them the information that it's not good long term. It cuts down on the good bacteria as well as bad bacteria, and whitening, and suggest other products. So that was kind of on the task of whitening, but we better get back on track, guys.
I know, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Okay. Debonding.
Mm.
What is the process of debonding mean? What is it?
You're bringing the enamel back to its original state.
So we're bringing it back to its natural pre-treatment state, but what are we doing?
Removing the resin.
Removing that leftover resin, that heavy duty chunks on there. And most of you got to try this too. What did you use to take the big chunks off first?
We used a finishing burr.
Yeah.
Carbide.
It's not for finishing, it's actually for starting. We learned that in our amalgam polish. And
Right.
so there are many, 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 many names of burrs. That's just called a finishing burr. So you're getting the bulk off with that. Now you think, well, okay, you followed your steps. It's pretty good. Patient feels with their tongue. They said, yep, it's feeling great. Then what are you gonna do?
The aluminum.
Without. Yep, the aluminum oxide. You're gonna buff it out, very fine slurry there, and then you may do going in for pumice if they're just in for that. You had time to do that, or you could continue just with prophy paste. And then, as we talked about then, that was a lot of commotion on the tooth, and we want to get it back into shape. So what are we going to do?
Fluoride.
We're going to do fluoride. And how many parts per million was it?
5,000.
5,000.
That's right. And what layer is it going through?
The enamel.
Enamel into the
outermost layer, our enamel.
Those
So soak into the
tubules.
pores, into the dentin. Okay. So how would you know? A lot of times the ortho resin, it's almost invisible. So you're scaling along. What would make you suspicious there's resin left behind?
Well, the patient would feel it with their tongue, tell you.
something.
Yep.
Or
Your scaler touched it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you would.
Turn gray.
Yeah,
Yep. So
composite.
here's how you kind of notice it's coming. What's it gonna look like compared to the enamel?
Rougher.
More opaque.
Yeah, it may feel rougher. It's gonna be more opaque, which means it's gonna be just a little bit dull. You know, when you use your air, and I'll say, did you use air on your lower anterior? And you check that and you see the tooth enamel shinier, smoother. And what color is the calculus?
Opaque.
More
It's more opaque and just dull looking.
Oh.
So so can cement be. So
Okay.
just like when you were learning what the difference is between a sealant and a composite, and when you're doing your charting, then you can take the Explorer across. If it's slippery and smooth, it's probably a sealant that'll look like a river, not a lake. But if it's an older macrofill type, larger composite, you can scratch across it and it'll be gray like a pencil. So same feel. Some of you have felt that before. That's what's going to be the feel for if there is residual resin composite left on there. So you'll have your gray mark, and then you'll feel it. And same thing. We had patient. You're going to have your gray mark. Patient's going to feel it with her tongue. How else might we find resin that's left over?
disclosing.
Said air. Yep, disclosing solution. So those are our ways that we could tell something's there, because disclosing solution is going to help us. It'll soak up on resin too, but chances are the resin's rough and catching plaque. So that's our key to that too. Any questions on the crossword puzzle review?
I haven't finished mine yet. I'm working on it.
Okay, well, that will be a nice review from being in the study sessions too. Some of it we've already talked about too. When we are doing our technique of debonding, how are we doing it as far as where are we starting? What are our movements like?
Brush like.
From the
Yeah, so we're not drilling on it. We're brush like stroking it, but are we going up from the incisal, or are we going down from the, I put gingival in the crossword puzzle. Your books says the same thing, cervical, so synonym there. So that threw a little people off, but that was just to really just snap that critical thinking in there. So you're going to go cervical to incisal, and not incisal to cervical, because if you slip, what would happen?
Gonna catch the gums.
It would hurt and catch the gums, versus the incisal, you're going to be fine, hopefully, with that. Okay. And know the difference between going through with the thin material and thick material for the whitening trays going in, as well as going into the oral appliances. So we got a chapter on oral appliances. It's not long, it's short and sweet. I just want to make sure everybody knows what each of those oral appliances are. The description in that chart that's there pretty much explains. You can figure out from the name what it is. It makes sense. So I want to make sure everybody knows that what those are, that it makes sense, because you don't see it like a space maintainer. It's going to be an ortho. It's maintaining space. There might be a child who had such a large decay they had to have their tooth out on S, and they're 8. Well, that tooth might shift, and so they're going to cemented in a space maintainer in there to keep it put.
So then that would be more of a fixed appliance?
Yeah, that type that they'll show in the book is more of a fixed appliance, but you can have removable retainers too. Obviously, people have permanent retainers. We've seen the bars. We're cleaning on the bars. They may wear a retainer overnight that's made too. And sometimes people wear a retainer every day if they are in the process of having an implant on their front tooth. And they'll make a retainer that holds a tooth in there. Sometimes people, I've seen it where if they're congenitally missing 7 and 9, they've had them removed, it's not time, they can't afford implants, bridges, whatever, they will have a like an ortho retainer with 2 teeth in there, and they'll snap it in, so it'll be treated like a removable appliance.
Okay.
Athletic guard, sports, trauma, snoring, sleep apnea, that's going to be made by a TMJ specialist typically to open their airway. Perio splint, mostly the periodontal offices are going to do that if they've had some gingival flap surgery, but they want it protected extra, having a medicament of some sort in there. Maybe they are going to use stannous fluoride to desensitize in there and as an antibacterial. We're going to see that. So any questions on the actual oral appliances?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so if you're trimming material and you've made your oral appliance for, let's say, a sports guard, or they have whitening trays in there too, how's that different with trimming as compared to you're going to have to trim a night guard?
Well, we said like the fluoride trays are thinner, so we can use like a scissor, and then
Yep.
the night guards are thicker, so we're gonna have to use like a burr or something.
So you're going to use what kind of burr and what kind of handpiece?
Labs slow speed.
Anna?
So use a lab. It's just the straight slow speed handpiece and an
Okay.
acrylic burr.
Yeah.
So you've got they're big burrs, and so and many times the dentist would be adjusting their night guard, not us. So there's thick material, there's thin material, and there's different diameters of that material, and they do different things when they are on the vacuum former. So there's numbers associated with thin and thick as far as how it's going to sag too, because the vacuum former, we've seen it, but we haven't gotten to play with that yet. I think of it kind of like a waffle maker. It opens up, I'll put my material in, you shut it, you've turned it on, it needs to get warm for 20 to 30 seconds. And then when it's time, it goes very fast and you go whoop, right down over your model. And then it vacuum forms it. And then after it's cool, then we can trim it. So it has to be able to sag in there. So you're watching thin versus thick, what's your difference going to be in there?
So I have written down here the sag is 1 millimeter, but I don't know if that's correct. But then the material itself, I'm assuming, is 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch for thin, and then 1/2 an inch to an inch if it's thick. Is that
That's
correct?
how it's going to be sagging down, because the material is whitening sheet is like 1 millimeter, 2 millimeters, and an athletic is going to be a little bit thicker. But the
Okay.
sag on it, it needs to sag that appropriate amount of time before it drops down. So the thinner the material, then it's going to sag 0.25, 0.5 inches. And then it'll be more for the thicker one.
Okay, I wrote this down wrong. So this is actually how much it sags from like the frame down?
Mhm.
Okay.
And yes, it's thinner, so we're going to be able to trim it with a scissor. And off we go. I think that reviews the, yeah, if you do your crossword puzzle, it's a nice review from what the PowerPoints are. How come we don't need a full base for our models when we're doing whitening?
Well, it says no base, and then it says horseshoe, and it's too much to trim.
You'd be trimming all day, at least through your lunch hour for sure. That's a lot to trim off. We don't need that detail, because when we have our study models, we don't need to see the palate. We don't need to see any area in the tongue or the base or trim. All we need is the teeth down to like the vestibular area so that we can get a good tray in there. because we're not showing it to anybody to explain treatment or educate or anything like that. Any
So what-
other questions?
I just so I can like visually understand it. When you have it in the horseshoe, does like the plastic suck through then like the center part more? Or how does that work? I don't know. I don't understand how it saves
Well-
your trimming time.
It's not a horseshoe in the sense that it's a full-blown horseshoe, but it is
Like a U shape.
kind of, yeah, kind of like a U shape too, because if it's in the upper, you need your tray to get in there and wrap around too. We just don't, less bulk is just better to work with. You know, it's basically, you don't have to get all fancy and do a perfect set of models. You want to trim away as much as you can of your model so that you can get it in there, so the trays can get on there, and it ends up being more of a U shape in there, so that you can work around it. Let's see, we did whitening, little debonding, oral appliances.
I did have a question mark next to like it in this PowerPoint. It talked about using a professional cleaner for any of their appliances. Is there a specific one that we should focus on, or is it like a denture cleaner?
Denture cleaner.
Okay.
Yeah, and that is something that is good to soak in hydrogen peroxide right away, because part of it, like when teeth are removed, then there are obviously growths and bone and tissue and etc. If you put it in hydrogen peroxide, it eats away all of the blood, all of the tissue, everything down to the tooth, down to the bone. So that gives you a little picture of how strong hydrogen peroxide is. I'll show you a visual because we're still being professional here, but I'm going to walk to something that my lovely little princess dog that I showed you decided she was too much of a princess to let another dog look in her food bowl. And she and this other dog, just a little snap, well, they locked canines. And so they were stuck. So it stopped. Nobody was really carrying on too much. And I noticed my dog was pouting, and I said, yeah, you're pouting because you're naughty and you should pout. And then she was bleeding. And the force of that in her upper canine broke her alveolar buccal bone. Her tooth was sticking out. So the neighbor's a vet, came over, looked at it. Anyways, long story short, this is her tooth. They gave it to me. I always ask for her teeth. So they gave it to me all bloody, full of tissue, and in a bag. And I'm like, ugh. I put this in hydrogen peroxide. That's what it did. So it bleached the tooth, and here's her alveolar bone still intact, and a whole canine. So you wait for my new necklace, because, oh, it's coming, because I got time to make it. So that puts it into perspective on what hydrogen peroxide would be doing to people's teeth every day.
I
Something like that.
But I used to spray it in my hair to make my hair blonder.
Yeah.
It works, but my hairdresser ripped me a new one.
Right. It breaks your hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. So eventually people are going to get so sensitive, so thin, and have some problems with that. So, okay. So that was just a little story just to lighten things up. Let's get back to Unit 7, and if there's any other questions. It's the same format as Unit 6. And we'll go to Canvas, and hopefully we're going to have a smoother transition when everybody's has their laptops and things all ready to go. Just review your PowerPoints, review the going through on the crossword. I want to try this poll feature here. Can you guys still see me?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because I can't see you because I am, well, I can't talk and type here, so I'll just let's see. I'm gonna give this a try. This is what you guys look like when you're taking a test, just so you know. You're typing and talking and going. So, okay, I'm gonna save this and I would ask for an answer. I'm not gonna want to answer your question.
What's that noise?
Okay, did you guys get a question?
Where did you put it?
Well, I did it in this polling feature.
Where?
Sorry, Miss Hampton, we didn't get anything.
Okay, hold on.
Oh, there we
here you-
go.
Yes, poll. How would you like to review for the final?
Yeah,
Oh, multiple.
Is this
I just kind of wanted to I wanted to try it, but I'm kind of getting a feel for if you guys want a review like this for the final on Monday, or
I think like a study guide and this type environment
talk
is
through
really
the
helpful.
study guide then? Would be
Through it.
awesome.
Yeah.
okay. All right. So okay.
I think
then
the class
I'm gonna,
really liked the discussion part,
all right. So all right. I'm
talking about it.
oh, you guys don't want to do a game. Okay. Look at it. 60% want a guide, 40% want a meeting. Look at that. Okay, I'm ending it now. Thank you. Okay, well, I think then that's what I'll do. I know what to create for an activity, not really an activity, more of a kind of an assignment type activity for tomorrow. So, okay. Any questions? We're done. Good.
No, thank you, Miss Kale. Or sorry, Miss Sampson.
Hey, you're welcome, Jessica.
My brain is fried. Obviously,
Yeah,
too much grape juice.
too much apple juice there. So, all right. And anybody who we can be done. Anybody who's got any questions that extra things that they want to ask me about can go ahead. Otherwise, you are we can FaceTime, or I will check my email in the morning too. I'll check it again last night too, because I'm going to post this for an announcement. But,
Sounds good.
okay, but I gotta go make apple pie right now.
Ooh, have fun.
Have some apple juice too.
Yeah, have some
Yeah.
while you're making apple pie.
Yes, sounds good. All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Miss Hampson.
Yep. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm still.